never guess what I tried, what I just started getting
Cocaine.
into. Okay. You
Cocaine?
will never guess the other thing that I just tried and started getting into.
Heroin.
You're 2 for 2.
Wow.
No.
Both of them at the same time? Those one's an upper, one's a downer. You don't want to mix those.
Well, that's what balances out so I can teach.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Okay, I'm not a druggie. No.
It's the ketamine that really throws you off edge.
But that's also what gives me the, go-to to deal with middle schoolers. I don't know if ketamine's an upper or a downer, actually.
I think it's a downer.
Well, then what I just said does not work. No, so it's not a habit, it's a hobby.
Sure.
No, not drugs.
Oh, okay.
What I started doing. Guess.
Okay.
Seriously.
Oh God. I don't give me a clue. Give me like a one-word clue.
Gardening.
Is it gardening?
No, but it's something that I do because we garden.
Are you growing pot and or poppy seeds?
That is extra illegal where I live.
Okay.
No. Pickling. Pickling. I'm doing pickling.
Oh, no. Okay. I did see that.
Yeah. The brine pickles. And they're freaking delicious, man.
Okay. I was actually going to ask you, did you, that vinegar looked pretty
It's not even
clear.
vinegar.
It's not vinegar? What are you pickling it in?
Water and salt.
That's it?
That's it. Water, salt, and then
okay.
seasoning, which for me was just garlic, cloves, and dill.
Yeah.
And it was clear. That was like minutes after I poured the brine in.
Right.
If I were to show you it now, it looks cloudy, very cloudy,
Right.
and there's lots of bubbles.
Well, I was just thinking because whenever I've pickled stuff, and my mom a couple years ago, she had like a massive harvest of cucumbers.
Yeah.
And she gave me like 3 or 4 jars of them. But I always use apple cider vinegar.
So that's what we did when I pickled our peppers last year.
Okay.
And that was...
Did you have Peter Piper pick a peck of them?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm mostly just saying yes because I am not fast enough to come up with a repetitive sounding... What's that word? When you repeat the first... I taught a poetry unit last semester. You would think I would have this...
Oh, alliteration?
Alliteration. I couldn't think of a quick-witted alliterative comeback.
Okay. If you need me to sub in your class, just let me know.
You can have them.
Take
you
them.
Show up, I will pass the buck to you, man.
Okay.
No, so yeah, last year when we had all of our pepperoncinis, I just did like apple cider vinegar and water, and then just peppercorns and stuff.
Right.
But my father-in-law gave us this book because of that. That was all about pickling vegetables, and we planted these like small cucumbers. They're not huge, they're just like the little fingerling ones, and then they started growing. And we were like, crap. Now we got to figure out what to do with them.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to break out that book. That's it. I'm trying to pickle stuff now. And I hated pickles as a kid.
Oh, me too.
Absolutely hated them. It wasn't until I moved to Poland and tried pickles there, reluctantly, I might add, when I was like, oh, wow, these are delicious. And the ones that I just made are exactly what I had there.
Yeah.
So there's no vinegar. It's just a gallon of water, 3/4 of a cup of salt, and then whatever herbs, spices you want to throw in there.
Interesting. I don't know if I have this entirely correct. Even though I did go to school for fermentation, which is exactly what this is. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think your statement that there is no vinegar is technically not correct, because I think what is happening is that sugar water will ferment.
Sure.
Create carbon dioxide and alcohol, and then that alcohol will then turn into vinegar.
That makes sense. So I'm not putting any sugar in it, though. It would just be the sugars from the cucumbers?
Well, yeah, that's more than enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting. That makes a lot of sense.
You let me know how they turn out. How long are you keeping them in there before you open them?
I'm just letting them go until they turn cloudy, and then I'm trying to pick at them. I notice they get better as days go on. This particular batch has been in there about a week.
Okay.
But I started eating them after 3 days.
Okay.
And the 3 days they were more crisp, but now they're
are
more
they briny at all? Like, do they taste pickled?
Yes, they do. They do.
Okay.
And I will say, like, the longer I'm letting them sit, they taste a little less salty over time. But I'm not sure if that's an effect of the pickling process or if it's because the dill and the garlic is becoming more prominent.
Yeah, could be.
But it's flippin' delicious, man. These are honestly some of the best pickles I've ever had.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I used to hate pickles with a fiery passion, and then all of a sudden, like overnight, I just couldn't get enough of them, and then decided to spend a bunch of money going to school to learn how to pickle stuff. And
it's more complicated than that. Like, you do a lot more than just pickling.
You can go into like yogurt, which is pickled milk, vegetables.
Ew, no. You just ruined yogurt for me. No.
Or you can go into beer, wine, and spirits, which is it's not so much pickling, but it is the things that we use to. It is the things that we use to pickle ourselves.
I mean, look, I knew that yogurt was fermented milk, but calling it pickled milk, it's just too far for me.
You don't like it?
No, I do not.
Well, it's I think if I'm not mistaken, I think it is slightly different because pickling like vegetables, when you use vinegar, that uses acetic acid. I believe yogurt uses lactic acid. So I don't know if that makes it any better. But
no, it's the term. It's not the process.
It's not. Okay. Well,
speaking of pickles, Marjorie Taylor Greene just showed Hunter Biden.
Showed someone's pickle.
I thought of that segue. Like,
that is a great segue. I'm so mad I didn't think of that. Right. But yeah, first pickle presented on the House floor, as far as I'm aware.
I don't know.
Actually, you know what? Anthony Weiner, I think, was a representative, so he might.
What a poor name to have when you act the way he
specific
did. Crime. Yeah. Like, but at the same time, it's kind of like, did we not expect a member of the Weiner family to at least show theirs off?
Yeah. No, yeah,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's just kind of one of those perfect cosmic coincidences.
Before we get too far into that, though, welcome to Agreeable Disagreements.
Yes, welcome. We are a podcast where two friends from differing political ideologies talk about topics from the week's politics.
That is correct. And this week we are going to talk about... I think we didn't talk about this. Let's talk about it now. I think something that we could do is state the topics we're going to talk about that week at the beginning of the podcast.
Okay. Yeah.
That way people know pretty quick on, oh, here's what we're talking about.
Yeah. And then we can go off on tangents that have nothing to do with those topics.
Exactly. So we are planning to talk. I guess that's a good thing to remind me. We should preface it by saying planning to talk about. We're planning to talk about the Marjorie Taylor Greene issue, aliens, because of course we're going to talk about aliens.
Because we're being invaded.
Right. And if we have time, we're going to talk about Mitch McConnell apparently having a stroke on TV.
Something, yeah. I don't know if I've seen
I think
exactly
they denied that it was actually a medical emergency.
Yeah, but of course they would. But you saw the video.
Yeah. I mean, you can even kind of see it sag a little bit. But maybe I'm just seeing that because I'm looking for it. I don't know.
Oh, no, he was looking straight in the eyes of the Grim Reaper.
I wonder if he's got like all 3 Deathly Hallows then, and that's why he survived.
Oh my God.
We just finished listening to that audiobook, so that's fresh in my thoughts.
Yeah, but you do the Jim Daly version. I hate the Jim Daly version.
Is it Daly or just Fry. Dale? I don't know. I like Stephen Fry too. Is it? Okay. I like the Stephen Fry versions, but I grew up with the Jim Dale versions, and so I just...
He reads them too fast. which is weird
slow
because I've
down on your app.
Well, yeah, but I'm not going to do that. But I've listened to other things that he's narrated. Like there's, do you ever read the Peter and the Starcatchers books by
No, I did not.
Dave Barry? It was kind of like a origin story for like Peter Pan.
Okay.
But by acclaimed New York Times, I think New York Times journalist and humorist Dave Barry, who invented Talk Like a Pirate Day. He narrated those books, and I recently I read the first 3 when I was a kid, and a few months ago I found out that there was a 4th book, so I bought it on Audible and I listened to it, and it was narrated by Jim Daly, and I really liked that. For some reason, though, with the Harry Potter books, can't do it.
I think I have a Christmas Carol read by him.
Oh yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
I have A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Stephen Fry, and that's fantastic.
No, okay, there's a better one, though, that's narrated by Martin, oh God, what's his name?
Freeman?
Martin Freeman. Because he plays Arthur Dent in the movie.
Yeah, that's right.
Sorry, I need to turn my phone down.
You're good. Did you see that Andy Serkis just released him reading Lord of the Rings?
Okay, no, so I actually, he actually did that a few years ago.
You're right. Yeah, it was a few years ago.
And he released those like a week after I bought the entire audiobook set narrated by Robert Inglis, who did like up until now the definitive audiobook. But I think they had like the first few chapters with Andy Serkis for free as like a tester. He did a fantastic job.
Oh yeah. But we're not here to talk about Andy Serkis. I got us off track.
We're already off topic.
To be fair, I'm not on medicine anymore. So, yeah. Marjorie Taylor Greene, why don't you introduce this topic? Because this was your idea.
She showed a dick pic. Specifically Hunter Biden's.
Okay, but let's. You did say she like censored it ish.
Yes. So basically,
I watched the video of her presenting it, and they still blurred out, even though she had kind of censored it. What is my dog doing?
Because she didn't do. That's a good question.
Just gonna cover him up.
I don't know if I've seen the version that was uncensored, like the actual one that she showed, even though that was censored. I get the sense that she did a pretty bad job of censoring it.
Right.
At least that's my, gut reaction. Sorry, the hiccups.
How dare you?
But basically, in an attempt to defame Hunter Biden, she, I think, made a like poster-sized printout of pictures of Hunter Biden allegedly with sex workers. Mm-hmm. And she, from what I read, I guess she put like the black like censor bar over genitals. She, blurred out the sex workers' faces. But I think it's not only is that just not within the rules of decorum for the House. I also, and I'm not a lawyer, but from what I understand of, it seems like this is potentially illegal. Maybe not at a federal level, but what you and I were talking about before we started recording. So there's, should we maybe give like a parental advisory warning before this?
Parental advisory warning. If you had a problem with your kid hearing the language that Andrew just used a few minutes ago, you're probably not going to want to hear about what we're about to talk about, which will still keep PG-13, but is still of a graphic nature.
Yeah, so, it's not I don't think we're saying anything obscene, but there are
we're going to speak about it
adult
factually.
Topics.
Yeah, it's an adult topic which we will handle factually.
So anyway, 50 states in the U.S. have laws penalizing what's called revenge porn.
I'm sorry, really quick. If you can hear stuff in my background, it's because my dogs are wrestling, and Alyssa is out fishing, so I have to watch them, and they're not going to stop unless I yell at them, which I'm not going to do while we're recording.
Does she have a little, like, hanger that she puts on, like, the doorknob that says "Gone Fishing"?
No, but now I know what I'm getting her for Christmas.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah.
Anyway, so 50 states have laws penalizing the distribution of revenge porn, which is basically people's private photos that they did not consent to be released, that are, pornographic in nature. Which I think, even though she blurred out, the sensitive areas,
sure,
I think that this is pretty blatantly explicit material that Hunter Biden certainly didn't intend to be released to the public, nor did he intend for it to be displayed on the floor of the House of Representatives.
Right. Now, I will say two things. I agree that she did not go about this the right way. Granted, I don't know what House procedures are for submitting evidence into the record. I don't think that's the way to do it, what she did.
Yeah.
I think if this is a matter of a legal, like if Hunter Biden is on trial on the House floor and this is evidence that they are trying to enter into the record and show, I understand how that would make sense. But my understanding is this was not the case. And the case was more like she just kind of brought it up, which doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, like apropos of nothing.
Right.
Which I think is hold on, I'm getting some you're kind of cutting out and your video is gone.
I'm still looking good on my end, so maybe it's just your internet connection.
Could be. Let me disconnect a couple things.
All right. Well, while you're doing that, because it's still
sorry,
recording.
I don't mean to interrupt.
You're good. The article I'm looking at is by The Independent, and it's saying that it was done during a Republican-led oversight committee hearing regarding IRS whistleblowers connected to a probe into President Joe Biden and his son Hunter Biden. So I guess it's like indirectly related. I don't understand why she would bring that up when you're talking about IRS connections, unless it's got something to do with him embezzling money or if it's connected to his tax fraud. But even then, you don't need to show the pictures.
Well,
sorry, alleged tax fraud.
Yeah, I mean, either way. So what I read, I'm looking at an article by The Guardian, and what the allegation is. Oh, actually, it says they were accompanied with the caption, Hunter recorded multiple sex tapes with a prostitute he paid for out of his law firm's bank account.
So that
also,
would be
this
embezzling?
article.
No, that's laundering. No, it's not even that. It's just misuse
it would just
of funds.
I think it would just be misuse of funds. But I think this article also makes the claim that, or the potential claim, that these photos may have come from his laptop.
Which is a whole other topic for a whole other time. That laptop.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, it's not only was it unnecessary and I think just the most grotesque display of theatrics.
Yeah, she could have. Oh, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Oh, I mean, I think it speaks to her character and how just the depths that she's willing to go to, not even get her way, but just be antagonistic.
It's attention-seeking behavior, right? Because I see, my students
certainly.
are not 12-year-olds showing these kind of images in the middle of class, but the constant attention getting or saying or doing ridiculous things to get attention, because they don't know the difference between positive and negative attention, is very, very reminiscent of what I see with Marjorie Taylor Greene. I see a lot of attention-seeking behaviors out of her.
I don't even think that it's that she can't tell the difference between positive and negative attention. I think it's that it doesn't really matter if it's positive or negative.
That's the issue, right? So, I mean, people who don't necessarily know the difference between positive or negative attention, it's just another way of saying they don't care what kind of attention they're getting. They just want some kind of attention because their brain processes that in the same way. If you're in trouble, that's still attention. I think it's their
constituents that don't understand the difference.
Well, you also got to think about whether or not her constituents knew what they were getting into when they voted for her, and the only way that we're going to find out about that is if she gets reelected.
Well, yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say that her constituents don't, which is why she was elected in the first place and hasn't been, recalled or impeached.
Sure.
I think anyone who has even a basic understanding of governance, laws, politics could pretty safely say, I hope, that Marjorie Taylor Greene is wholly unqualified for her position.
I mean, there's a difference between being unqualified for... I would agree with that, making a mockery, but I think there's a difference between being unqualified for and doing a good job at, because legally she's qualified for the position, but
sure,
by the definitions given in the Constitution, you look at what the qualifications are listed in the Constitution, she is qualified, but that doesn't mean she's doing a good job, right?
Yeah.
And that's for any profession. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention before I get too far is you brought up the allegation or argument of potentially this being revenge porn.
Mm-hmm.
So the National Association of Attorneys General defines revenge porn as a type of non-consensual porn defined as the distribution of sexually graphic images or videos of an individual without their consent in the context of an intimate relationship.
Yes.
And with that in mind, I could see the argument both ways, right? I could see how this could be argued that this is a distribution because she didn't have to bring this up. It's not super relevant to the case. Right.
It was distributed. Yeah, but it was televised.
I think it depends on that word, distribution, right? How is it being distributed? Because it's one thing
on national TV.
But hold on, it's one thing to bringing it up in a hearing, which is a legal proceeding, which I'm not going to say that it was okay for her to do. Again, we've covered that. I don't think she did the right thing there. But I don't know if that would be considered distribution. When I think of distribution in this term, I think of like a ex-boyfriend sending out his girlfriend's nudes kind of a thing. Which that is a different form of distribution, sending that to his friends, sending it to her friends, her family as a form of shame and embarrassment. And I do think she's trying to shame and embarrass Hunter Biden here. I feel like that's pretty clear. Yeah. But I don't know if that's the same kind of distribution. It's not like she signs some kind of legal document to say, I promise to provide these images to the media or to certain media forms.
But that's not... That doesn't have anything to do with it because...
Well, if you're going to bring up the idea if she's doing it on TV, then that would be the idea of distribution. That's how distribution works in mass media. Right? You say, I have these, I will give them to you.
I think that qualifies under this specific legal definition. Because, I mean, what's the difference between that and... I mean, obviously, like the case that that automatically comes to mind when you think of, what is revenge porn is like, your significant other, sends you a salacious pic. And
it's a great word, salacious.
And then I know I'm just full of great vocabulary words.
And I'm the English teacher. This is, well, not anymore, but that's sad. Keep going.
Yeah.
You just agree. Yeah, it is sad. Anyway, keep going.
No, because it is sad.
Anyway,
no, everyone thinks of that of like, you're like someone sends their significant other a dirty picture and then that person like maybe after they break up goes and sends it to all their friends. But really more what this is if, somebody like a voyeur went to like a nude beach, took pictures of the patrons of that beach, and then went and took it to like the local news station and had them air it on TV. It's not it's, I mean, I think the bigger problem here is that there is no rigidly defined definition of pornography or obscenity. And there's a famous quote from, I forget what the name of the case is, but there's a famous quote from, I believe it was a Supreme Court case in the 70s where they were trying to define what is pornography and what is obscene and therefore allowed to be censored and not protected by free speech. And I think the opinion released by the court had the line of, I can't define it, but I know it when I see it.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that. Yeah, I remember reading about that.
Yeah.
Reading sounds better.
So it's hard. I think I don't think the issue is whether or not she distributed it, because I think I see where what you're saying about it, but I don't think that's the argument to be made. I think you're kind of splitting hairs if you go that route. I think the argument that's being had about, whether this is okay or not, or whether she broke the law or not, is about is this classified as pornography? And we don't have a reliable metric for that.
I agree that we don't have a reliable metric for pornography, and that could definitely help define whether or not this is revenge porn or a crime. I do think, however, that there's the argument of whether or not something is right or good and whether or not something is illegal. Because there are a lot of things which are not right, but are legal. And vice versa. There are a lot of good things that are illegal, So I do think distribution is just as important a factor in this as whether or not, not whether or not, but how you define what pornography is. Because, let's take into account here, she is showing this at a House committee meeting, and unless it's a matter of national security, House committee meetings are public.
Yeah.
Right? And so, now you could argue that she is specifically doing it in a public place for the purpose of distribution. I completely see that argument. At the same time, though, if she's going to bring it up in some kind of House legal proceeding, regardless of where it is, it's going to be public. Yeah. And I think there's a difference between bringing these up on a House committee meeting and bringing them up in an interview on Fox News.
Sure.
Just like there's a difference between bringing things up in a courtroom and bringing things up in a TV interview. And I'm still not going to say that it's right.
Her intent was not to get that picture to the masses. Her intent was to discredit Hunter Biden in these proceedings, which also happened to be televised. But she knew full well that it was televised.
Right, but intent is a big part of whether or not something is a crime.
Yeah.
Or to what degree.
Well, but also, I know people say or no, I guess that's possession, but I think they say this about intent, that it's 9/10 of the law. You have to, I think what it is you have to have a reasonable expectation that you would know that you're breaking the law.
Sure.
And I think that in this case, she had a reasonable expectation to know that this would be distributed to the public via C-SPAN.
Yeah. But I also, again, I think
she's dumb. She's not that dumb.
I agree with both of those things. But I would just still challenge the idea that I still think there's a difference between doing something in a public forum that is legally has to be public and seeking out a public opportunity in some sort of media situation.
Maybe, but I don't think on either front she's protected. I think there's a good case to be made that she specifically did that because she knew it would be televised, or she did it without regard to the fact that it would be televised when she had a reasonable expectation.
I agree.
To take that into consideration. Either way, she shouldn't have done it. And I think that it would be classified as pornography because it's, even though she censored it, I think it is pornographic. They, from the reports or from the article I read, like they were engaged in, sexual activities. Also, I think one of the defining criteria that we do have for pornography is context to the larger narrative.
Sure.
And you could maybe argue against this, but from my point of view, I don't see how this adds any context to the larger narrative. I think it was just theatrics and showboating. And
but I think context to the larger narrative. Seeking. I think context to the larger narrative is more about the pornography itself and less about the situation in which you're presenting, because there is a difference between me holding up a magazine that I'm covering up the cover of and saying, this is pornography, just so you know, and then reading a steamy novel that has maybe not images, but pornographic scenes written in high detail.
Yeah.
And I think those are two different contexts. One is awareness, one is for an express purpose of arousal. And I think that's two different things, and I think it's more about awareness with Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, again, I agree. Not right. I agree on everything you said for the most part. My challenge is whether or not it's a crime. I don't think legally it would be I don't think it would hold up in court.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of where I'm coming down to, is I think we both can agree, and I hope that most people can agree that morally and ethically, this was wrong.
Yeah.
Legally, I think what it's going to come down to is whether or not this can be defined as pornography.
I agree.
And
because she could have just talked about the images. She could have described the images. Yeah. She didn't have to show them.
She could have done a lot more censoring.
Right. And even the Republicans on the committee, who are her fellow Republicans, were like, why are we looking at this?
Well, that's why I'm saying it didn't add any context to the larger narrative.
Right.
I think the best thing that she could have done, though, is actually get a salient and relevant argument to make her case that didn't rely on just blatant slander.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think it was a Hail Mary that she was throwing, because they don't have anything on Hunter Biden other than what he's already, what we already know he did in regards to the tax evasion.
Right. I think this is a good place to transition out of this topic and on to aliens.
Yes. We are being invaded.
By germs.
Aliens are here.
And
First contact has happened.
First contact.
And I actually have a surprise for you.
Rips your face off.
I pulled off a mask.
I just had a close encounter of the third kind the other day myself,
Yeah.
Had to do that whole do whatever melody. I know that was terribly out of tune. I'm a drummer.
What melody was that supposed to be?
From Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It's a freaking
I've actually never seen that. I've never seen that. It's one of the ones that's on my list. Hey, you know what? I just watched When Harry Met Sally, so I'm working through my list. But
I haven't seen When Harry Met Sally.
It's actually pretty good. I didn't think I was going to like it, but it was good.
No, you gotta watch Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It's Richard Dreyfuss at his best, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. Really good.
I was watching something with him in it
Jaws?
the other day. No, it wasn't Jaws.
That one about something, Mr. Holland's Opus, I think it is.
No, but that's a great movie.
That is a great movie.
Wait, does he play Mr. Holland in that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's been so long since I've seen that. I didn't make the connection.
Let me double check that. Yep, he does.
No, it was something that he did fairly recently, like within the last 10 years. God, I don't remember what it was. Oh, well, it's not important.
I didn't know that movie takes place in Oregon. Mr. Holland's Opus, he's at an Oregon high school.
Wait, no way?
Yeah, I just Googled it.
I did not know that.
Yeah, but in the meantime, he's taken a job at an Oregon high school. It doesn't say which one.
Wow. Okay.
It's based on a true story?
Yeah.
Okay, you keep talking about aliens.
Story?
I'm gonna Google this while you talk.
Yeah. Well, just a brief side note. I think just in relation to Mr. Holland's opus, there are two movies that I think that like don't get enough credit for being legitimately good movies because they're what we would have to watch, like when we had a sub that didn't know anything about the topic, and they would put these movies on because they're tangentially related to education. And one is Mr. Holland's Opus, and the other is Stand and Deliver, which is phenomenal movie.
Oh, okay. I think I've seen
also
parts
based
of that
on
one.
a true story. Yeah, it's really good. Sadly, Jaime Escalante, the math teacher played by Edward James Olmos in Stand and Deliver, despite him, being this whirlwind of a force in this inner city school system, he passed away from cancer because his insurance wouldn't pay for his medication, which is why we need free healthcare. Anyway,
that's a hell of a stretch, man.
No, a person who is legitimately a hero died because his insurance wouldn't cover his cancer.
So that's not the stretch I'm talking about. I mean, like the jump from Mr. Holland's Opus to, and maybe it might just be because
my main point was that these two movies, Mr. Holland's Opus and Stand and Deliver, don't get enough credit because we were all like quote unquote required to watch them in school, and never, like, none of us, I think, at least in our generation, were introduced to these movies like outside of a school setting.
I mean, I watched Mr. Holland's Opus at home, but
because you were a band nerd like me.
Yeah. All right. So aliens. Okay. Here's my thing. I do not freak out until Hank Green freaks out. Okay. Do you know who Hank Green is?
Oh yeah, I've been watching the new, or I've been waiting for the new. I don't think it's out yet. The new series of Dimension 20. He is one of the cast members.
That. That's true.
Yeah.
No, I think he's huge on TikTok, and I got this from somebody else who said I'm not going to freak out until Hank Green freaks out. And I was like, no, that makes sense, because he's very analytical. He's very gonna be driven by data, but he actually did a video on this, and he said, if you notice, all the testimony isn't, I saw this. It's, I spoke with someone who saw this. Yeah. And that's a key difference.
Yeah. It's basically hearsay. The other thing that I think
basically, it is hearsay. I heard someone say that they saw this.
No, it's hearsay. I think the other thing that people don't realize is that, like, you get the headline, Navy releases confirmed UFO footage, and everyone's like, oh my god, they released footage confirming aliens. And it's like, no, we confirmed that we are not able to identify this flying object. That's all we're saying. It's that we're saying, here's footage of something that we don't know what it is.
Right. That's the unidentified part of the UFO. That's the U.
Yeah, which I think they're trying to change the acronym to
UAP.
Yeah. Yeah, to make it like less sensational.
Yes.
But I think I was actually having a conversation today with a colleague who he was kind of he was talking about, like, why do they keep, like, if there's nothing there, like if there's nothing to hide, then why hide it for so long? And I came to the conclusion in my conversation with him that, like, the reason why, like the fact that you hide something doesn't add any validation to its truth, especially in this case. I think the reason why it took so long for them to release this footage and the footage that came out like or not release this footage, but for, this information to come out, was because it doesn't make any sense to sensationalize something and potentially cause a panic or, get people's hopes up, or, to create more of a stir than is necessary before you have the relevant information.
Sure. Now,
you don't get half the, you don't give half the information for people to analyze on their own before before you're done collecting it, basically.
I agree. I will say I Googled this. I brought it up. NPR did say that there is some firsthand accounts, but it's not of aliens. It's just of UAPs, which,
yes,
for those who don't know, is unidentified aerial phenomena.
Yeah.
And so there were some Navy fighter pilots and commanders who did talk about their experiences with aircraft, including a dark gray or black cube inside of a clear sphere, which was estimated to be 5 to 15 feet in diameter. There's also some encounters that I've but people talk about encounters where there's just some object that's just floating there, not moving, not even with the wind.
Yeah.
But I mean, here's the thing. That could be anything from aliens to military tests. Ghosts. Could be ghosts.
Ghouls.
Specters.
Yeah.
Poltergeists.
Phantasms? Is that another word for ghosts?
I hope so.
Phantoms.
Phantoms, there you go.
Yeah. I think Phantasms is the name of a Star Trek episode. Actually, I know for a fact it's the name of a Star Trek episode.
I was going to say, do you want to revise that?
It's the one where Data has bad dreams about the miners.
And he has
his body
bad dreams?
turns into cake. Yeah.
Turns into cake?
Yeah, his body turns into cake. And Counselor Troy... Or no, I'm sorry. Counselor Troy's body turns into cake. And then they also drink something out of a straw from Commander Riker's head. But he's reacting to a frequency being given off by these transparent, interdimensional parasites that are reacting weird with his positronic matrix. I've never seen
super weird episode. And
I don't know
not
if you can
excited
tell,
to get
I've
there.
never seen Star Trek a day in my life.
Jeez.
I've seen it every day in my life.
You're really selling this on me.
Yeah. No, it's a great show, and that's one of my favorite episodes. Anyway, last week we were talking about our affinity for Occam's razor, and I think people need to take a little bit of that into consideration.
I agree. Yeah, the simplest explanation is the best one. Usually.
Yeah, there is a non-zero chance that it's aliens.
Yeah.
We have not ruled that out. But it is so close to zero that it's not worth consideration.
Right, because the only chance that we are so far away from any other system that could potentially support life, at least by the way we know could support life, by our known definitions, that it would take multiple light years to get here, not just a few. We're talking hundreds, if not significantly more. So the only way for us to have interstellar contact with these beings would be if they have faster than light travel, which as of right now, we don't believe is possible.
Well, I mean, you could have generational ships, but I think so. Are you familiar with? I think it's called the Fermi paradox.
I have heard of the Fermi paradox.
Let me look it up real quick. So basically what it is it's the paradox between what Wikipedia says is it's the discrepancy between the lack of conclusive evidence of advanced extraterrestrial life and the apparently high likelihood of its existence.
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty naive to think that there is no other life in the universe as we know it.
I agree. Statistically speaking, it's likely. I mean, if there's a 1 in a billion chance, and we know there's several hundreds of billions of potential planets out there, statistically speaking, it's going to work. There's something out there.
And people talk a lot about how, very specific conditions were needed to create life on this planet.
Sure.
But then what I don't think they consider is, just the, I don't know if this would count as a platitude, but I'm going to call it a platitude. The platitude of life finds a way. I think that
okay, Jeff Goldblum.
Well,
life finds a way.
Yeah, but I think look at adaptation in species. It doesn't happen super quickly, but I think that there is some. I think the necessary variables to facilitate some kind of biological organization that goes from disorder to order.
Sure.
So, reverse entropy. I think that span of requirements is probably wider than the majority of us think. I don't think that conditions need to be exactly like they are on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
But the other part of the Fermi paradox is possible explanations to why, if assuming that extraterrestrial life does exist and that advanced, and that they're advanced enough to start exploring the cosmos, why haven't we been contacted? And you already mentioned one. It's just that space is too vast, and the lifespan of civilizations and species don't last long enough because the human race, its entire existence from 10 million years ago when we first became Homo sapiens to whenever we eventually die out as a species, that is a blip on the radar of the cosmic timeline.
Yeah, if you were to take all of just human history, right, just all of human history, the amount of time that we have record of, just written stuff down, right? So let's say, sorry, let me rephrase this. You take all of
it's not even a fraction of a fraction.
Right. So you take all of human history and turn it into like a 24-hour day. We only know about the last 11 minutes.
Yeah.
Something like that. Really close to that.
Yeah. And the amount of, I don't think that people understand. I have a hard time understanding and conceptualizing just how vast the universe is.
Yeah.
And
big.
The closest star to us is Alpha Centauri, and that's 4 light years away.
Yeah.
That would take, I don't know the numbers, but there's no reasonable expectation that in our lifetime or, generations and generations in the future will have the ability to reach, we'll have the ability for interstellar travel.
I would challenge that.
Consist on
just a little bit, but go ahead. Finish your statement.
Well, there's some caveats. There's, I think that, I think personally, from what I know, I think faster than light travel is not possible because from what I understand of the physics of it, and due to time dilation, is if you actually did cross that threshold, you would then go back in time. I think there is more of a case to be made for warp travel. So the difference is, Star Wars so Star Wars, that uses faster than light travel. Right. This is more Star Trek where you're folding space to make the actual distance shorter.
Right.
I think that makes more sense. I think theoretically the math works on that. Even if, practically it doesn't make sense. But I think, oh shit, sorry. I lost my train of thought. And you could have intergenerational ships. I think, if you could find a way to sustain human beings on a ship that lasted 400 years, maybe then you could get to Alpha Centauri. But that's the very closest stellar body outside of our solar system.
And let's be honest, that is, historically speaking, a long time to not have a revolution.
Yeah.
I think I would challenge you on this idea that within our lifetime, we wouldn't see that. Just because. And I'm not going to say that we will see interstellar travel within our lifetime. I think it's possible. But if you look...
I think we might see the launching of it, but we're not going to see it arrive.
Oh, I would disagree. Because if you look at the history of technology, and I wrote something on this recently. I'm just trying to figure out where I wrote it so I can refer back to it. I had a professor in college who argued that the progress of technology is exponential. Right. So if you look at how long it took us to get to agriculture, get out of hunter-gatherer and just get to, hey, let's plant the beans where we are, and then we don't have to go find them, was very, very long.
Yeah.
But the amount of time it took us to get from agriculture to let's start making wheels, significantly shorter. And from wheels to making chariots, wheelbarrows, carts, even shorter. From that point, you get to, but even then, we're still talking hundreds of years. It was almost a millennium, I believe, from the creation of the wheel to the creation of the wheelbarrow.
Yeah.
And that seems like a pretty logical thing to us. But we have hindsight. So you compare that, even just in the last few hundred years. I mean, think about... Okay, he's got a bone. It's my dog. Sorry. Think about just the last couple hundred years. What was life like in the 1800s? And then how quickly has technology progressed just since we harnessed electricity?
Yeah.
I mean,
or steam power.
Or even, let's even go back to steam power, right? You go from having to rely on the wind and take days to go up the Mississippi River, weeks to go up the Mississippi River, to having steam power and being able to do it in just a few days.
Yeah.
Or, and then from there to have electric or gasoline-powered motors, where you can do what used to take you 2 days, now takes you a few hours. And just looking at the progress of the automotive industry, you used to have cars where, the first high-speed crash happened at like 6 miles an hour.
Yeah.
The top speed, no, that's not what that was. It's the top speed of the first automobile race was 6 miles an hour, right? The average human can run faster than that for a decent amount of time.
30 miles an hour if you're Michael Scott. And I know for a fact that scene instantly replayed in your mind.
Oh, yeah. So, no, but think about where we are today versus 30 years ago. But think about the 30 years before that and the 30 years before that, right?
Yeah.
How far have we come since 1993? And it's an insane amount. But from 1963 to 1993, that's not as much. 33 to 63.
I don't like that comparison because that makes me feel so old. Oh my God. The difference between 1963 and 1993 is the same as the difference between 1993 and today.
Yep.
That's not okay.
That is how math works, my friend.
That's not okay.
Yeah, imagine being the history teacher and having to teach 12-year-olds this. There is no end to the "you're old" jokes.
Yeah.
It sucks. Anyway, but so the whole point of this is to say, I think if you look at it progressing on an exponential scale, which there is a very solid argument to make, then in theory, we could see that kind of interstellar travel within our lifetime. The problem here...
In theory, I don't think we are, though, because even if technology progresses at an exponential rate, from my understanding, the sheer distance that we're talking about makes that impossible. There's no way that our rate of technology could meet up with that gap. Because
you could be right here. You could absolutely be right, and I'm not going to pretend to say that I know all about this. But what I'm trying to get at is, I guess the problem here is we know what the goal is. If the goal is interstellar travel, we don't necessarily know where that is in comparison to what we have, because the technologies that would make that possible they don't even exist yet, nor do the technologies
they haven't even been conceptualized,
right? Nor do the technologies that would make those technologies possible. So we're trying to make guesses based on steps that we know exist but cannot define. And so
try to explain the internet to somebody in 1930,
precisely
1935,
right? So we're trying to explain dial-up to a 12-year-old today. So like we even though we can define it, we don't know what we need to do it, but we know where the goal is. And so we can say it's moving exponentially, but we don't know how much of that it still needs to move to get us there.
Right. We don't know. Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying. We don't know, like,
we know the rate
that it's increasing, but we don't know the end point that it needs to increase to.
Correct. Well, yeah, we don't know what we don't know is the issue.
Yeah.
We know what we know. We know what we need to know, some of it, but we don't know all of what we need to know.
And we know some of what we don't know. But I think going back to just the sensationalism around, people thinking that there are aliens, I wanted to go over a couple other explanations to the Fermi paradox. So,
right, because you said there were 3, and we only touched on 1.
Oh no, there's way more than 3.
Oh, sorry. Keep going then.
And I'm not going to be able to go through all of them. So there's that. Just the distances are too vast. There is the possibility that that our definition of life is too narrow. And we're not able to interact with them either on, like a dimensional plane, or just recognize that, they are living beings based on our own definition and our own inability to even access like a way to interact with them. There is my personal favorite, which is just that we're not interesting enough. Which I think actually makes the most sense, because if you think about it, if you're a species that is capable of efficient and effective faster than light travel, or not faster than light travel, but efficient and effective interstellar travel.
Sure.
What do we have going on down here that is remotely interesting for a species that is that advanced?
I mean, I got a pretty thrilling pond like right behind my house.
I've heard people compare it. Well, yeah, like I've heard people compare it to like watching an anthill, but I think
that is
like
accurate.
It's that distance. I think I don't think it is accurate though, because I think we are even less interesting than an anthill.
I disagree with that. I think if you were to blow up, I could see it being to them an equivalent of what an anthill is to us. Because I mean, if you think about it, I mean, ants have technology. It's just not the way that we would necessarily define technology for ourselves. Sure. Right? They have a structured society. It's just different than what we would see for ourselves. So if we look into some future philosophical, technological position, utopia, whatever, then yeah, we would look like the primitive ants that have a form of technology, a form of society, but it's not to the same level, right? And if not ants, then maybe like a pod of whales or orcas or a group of gorillas and chimpanzees, kind of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I just think that is, I think that's my favorite one because it requires a certain amount of humility. And I think, honestly, I think it is very narcissistic to think that if aliens did come to Earth, that they would, interact with us, and specifically interact with us only in the United States.
But the United States is the main character, man.
Well, yeah. No, but it's like what all these movies leave out is like, if an alien came to Earth and made a like artificially created composite of the average human, they would be Chinese. none of the characters in the movies are Chinese.
That's fair. I mean, yeah, if you were to look at it just purely by a numbers average, yeah, it would be at least Asian, if not Chinese.
Yeah, at least Southeast Asian.
Right.
Anyway, so the interesting. On the Wikipedia article for the Fermi paradox is a section on the Drake equation. And
I don't really like Drake. His music's just not for me.
Oh, different Drake. Frank Drake.
Oh, so not the one from Drake and Josh?
No, the astrophysicist who tenured at the University of California at Santa Cruz and was my mom's boss.
Wow. All right. Just dropping the bomb there. Go ahead.
Yeah. She has some cool stories, but I don't want to repeat them on the podcast.
Fair. Has he seen aliens?
He threw a good office party. That's all
fun.
I'll say.
Okay.
But another explanation for the Fermi paradox is that civilizations are just too short-lived to coincide with one another.
Ooh,
so
I think I like that one the most.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one makes a lot of sense. Just, the universe is 13 billion years old. Our solar system is only 4 billion years old. And life.
Oh no, it's more than that. It's more than that because the Earth is like 49.
No, our solar system is. No, it's not.
How old is the solar system? Okay, I am wrong. 4.571. Yeah. How old is the Earth?
Yeah.
4.543. Okay, I'm wrong.
And then I believe life on Earth is about 1 billion years old. You can double check me on that.
Yeah, I mean, not for any other sake than I'm curious. Life on Earth began at the end of this period called the Late Heavy Bombardment, some 3.8 billion years.
Oh, I had it reversed. Okay. The Earth only existed for 1 billion years before life, which to me is amazing.
Right, that's relatively quick.
The majority of the time that the planet Earth, you get an accretion disk that gains enough mass that it can pull itself into a sphere. The 3/4 of the amount of time since that happened, life has existed on Earth.
It's more than that. It's 83.5% of Earth's timeline has had life.
Okay, I was off by 8%.
8.6.
8.5. 8. Okay.
I rounded down when I said it too. Just by
No one likes a pet ant.
I believe it's pronounced pissant.
No, well,
and that's not swearing. Too. That is an actual term.
Is it?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Okay, so it is vulgar. Never mind.
Well, yeah, of course it is.
I just don't know where it falls on the range of how bad. Okay, well, I call my brother that all the time. I think it's
pretty innocuous. Well, that's because he is a pissant sometimes.
All brothers are.
And a few other things. Well, Parker specifically.
Okay, he's been really good lately. In his defense.
I have nothing but love for Parker.
I'm not sure that it's reciprocated, but yeah, all right.
Probably not.
Anyway, keep going.
It doesn't need to be.
I don't think he hates you. I think he just doesn't care. He doesn't care about a lot of things and people.
That's fine. What I meant was that I have no ill will towards Parker.
No, I got it. But we'll cut this section out.
No, leave it in.
Leave it in. Okay.
He needs to hear this.
He needs to know. Yeah, because he is such an avid listener of anything.
I would hope he would listen to us.
Anyway,
I think that's as far as I'm going to go with the Fermi paradox. But I basically what I'm getting at is it goes back to Occam's razor.
Sure.
There's so many other simpler explanations for what these objects could be, what these eyewitnesses accounts could actually be describing and misinterpreted. And I think that people just need to take a chill pill and it would be cool if there were aliens. I celebrate First Contact Day when Zefram Cochrane made his inaugural flight in the Phoenix and broke the warp barrier, and the Vulcan ship surveying moons of Saturn saw him and made first contact in outside of, I believe, Bozeman, Montana, in April of 2063, I believe. Anyway, like I said, I've never seen an episode of Star Trek.
My God.
I want that to happen more than anyone else.
You know more about Star Trek than I know about Star Wars and Lord of the Rings combined. Yeah. And I know a lot about those things.
It's sickness. It's... I've had it since birth because I was shown Star Trek since birth, so I think that makes it congenital. But it is... It really does... it really does hinder my daily life.
You get a new doctor. Do you have any diseases? I have a congenital Star Trek addiction.
I've seen this before.
Yeah, well, I've seen this before. I got it. Yeah. Trekkies, got it. Yeah, understood.
You're my third case today.
Yeah, you need a prescription. I'll make it so.
Yeah.
I want there to be aliens just as much as I want there to be Bigfoot and a Loch Ness Monster. Right?
Yeah.
In that, I know that there's probably not, at least probably not right now, but it would be so cool if there were. Like, could you imagine if just suddenly a Loch Ness Monster washed up and we were all like, oh crap, like, this is awesome.
Well, I think the classic version of Nessie is based off of a plesiosaur, right?
I don't know about classic, but one version, yeah, definitely. Because there's also
the
a sea
long
serpent
neck with the
But there's also a sea serpent version of Nessie, and the long neck one I think goes back to a picture that was in a newspaper, which was proven to be falsified, but the imagery stuck.
It was a guy that
did the submarine,
staged a log, I think.
I'm thinking of the one that was like a neck put onto a toy submarine that he staged.
Oh, maybe that's what it was.
But I want there to be Bigfoot. I want there to be aliens.
Yeah.
If for no other reason than for all these crazy crackpots that you see on the Discovery Channel to just be like, you see?
Yeah. Just to let Giorgio Tsoukalos have his one day in the spotlight where he's not just an absolute idiot.
And if you don't know who that is, you've seen the meme where it's this guy going, aliens. It's that guy.
Yeah. George, he's somebody that if you saw a picture of him, you'd be like, oh, I know this guy.
Right. He is the reason I no longer like the History Channel.
Yeah.
Well, not him.
Him
the
and Eric
content
Von
that
Daniken.
airs him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, my favorite thing is he's always like, could it be that it's actually this? And it's like, there's a very easy answer to that. No. Could it be that the pyramids were actually built by extraterrestrials? Good question. No.
Right. And you know what? On that
Next
note,
topic.
I hate how we blame these amazing, magnificent achievements of past human cultures.
Yes.
Or rather not blame, but credit them to aliens. Because we look back and we say, oh, yeah, there's no way that the Egyptians could have built these things this quickly. And we're like, yeah.
Yeah, they were so primitive.
But doesn't that make it more amazing that they did? Because, yes they were primitive. They had primitive tools. That is true. But they still found a way, and they worked really hard for it. And you'd be surprised, not to discount the history of slavery, but with the pyramids specifically, you'd be surprised how
they had a large free workforce that they could utilize.
You'd be surprised how little of it was slave labor.
Well,
comparatively
I don't know
speaking,
about that.
Comparatively speaking, a lot of it was volunteer. Let me double check myself.
Okay.
Let me double check myself.
Did you read this in a Florida textbook?
No, this is
like the ones that are claiming that slavery provided slaves with many useful career skills.
So this is a Wikipedia article that says there is a consensus among Egyptologists that the Great Pyramids were not built by slaves, according to noted archaeologists Mark Lehner and Zahi Hawass. And then there's also BBC Science Focus. Contrary to popular belief, it wasn't slaves who built the pyramids. We know this because archaeologists have located the remains of a purpose-built village.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've talked about this before. I know Wikipedia gets a lot of flack. I find it a very reliable source.
It gets a lot of flack for something that was true in the 1990s.
Yes, when it was first done. But I think it is peer reviewed.
It is
in a very strict sense. Maybe not, peer reviewed in the same way that we require them to be for scientific journals. But I usually find it to be a very reliable source.
Yeah.
So if they are saying that, I will take that as somewhat as gospel.
I would. I mean, so I had a history professor who talked to us about Wikipedia, and he said you should not cite Wikipedia in your papers, but not for the reasons
because
you
the
think.
Citations are already in there.
Right. It's not because of the reasons you think. It's not because it's not reliable. It's because it's an encyclopedia. And encyclopedias are not scholarly sources that you use in scholarly papers, because they are more of a summary. And if you're going to be citing a source in a scholarly paper, you need to be citing something that is more in-depth and argumentative, which encyclopedias aren't. So you don't cite Wikipedia for the same reason you shouldn't cite Britannica or the ones that some salesman sells you on your doorstep.
Sure, yeah. I think also what it goes down to is that you should distill your source. So within Wikipedia, you have footnotes that lead you to the citations. Go to that citation. Within that citation, whether it's a journal article, whether it's a publication, a documentary or something, they will have citations for their information in that. And so what you really should do is ideally follow that thread of this fact that you are citing or hoping to cite back to its back as far back as you can go.
Right. And go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, that was kind of it.
Okay. Well,
I did want to, or actually, no, you go ahead. I wanted to go back to the pyramids thing, though.
Okay.
I was talking about this with my friend today.
We can touch that in a second. I don't think we're going to get to the Mitch McConnell freeze today because we're almost at time.
Okay.
But I do want to say, this is a great opportunity to talk about something that I think we can agree on, that a lot of people claim to agree on, but don't actually, which is checking sources, checking facts. Yeah. Because I see a lot of people on both sides who cite articles or cite sources that when you actually look at what they say aren't really accurate or aren't really reliable. And the problem with it is sometimes you're citing an article which is citing a book that was disproven in the 1990s, but, no one's reading every academic book to know that, someone wrote an argument against this.
Right.
And I see a lot of people following the dogma, a lot of people following the arguments, not following the data, not following the logic. And
just not having the know-how to parse a reliable source from an unreliable source.
Oh my gosh, yes. And part of that is identifying bias, and a lot of people
and logical fallacies and
logical fallacies. But a lot of people will look at something that they agree with and automatically say, oh, well, because it matches my bias, it must be true.
Yeah.
Which is not always the case. And I think that's
unless you come from a very informed perspective, it is rarely the case that it works out that way.
Right. Yeah. And even, I would consider myself relatively informed, and I still find myself regularly having my own biases challenged. And I think, as I should, I think intellectually that's how you grow.
You invented a podcast revolving around that specific thing.
Right. Which is kind of what I'm getting at here. This is part of what we're doing is, in my experience, I have found that when you're having two arguments based on facts, the truth is usually somewhere in the middle. Now, that might be closer to one side, but it's not at the edge ever. It's usually somewhere along that line. And that's kind of the purpose of this. Now, you wanted to talk more about the slaves in the pyramids. So go ahead. I said my little spiel.
Yeah, no, I'm in total agreement of that. I think just to tack on to what you said, I kind of the example that I use is somebody that I know is an anti-vaxxer. This person was posting on social media, during the pandemic about, various sources, to claim that the vaccine is bad for you and toxic. And I remember specifically she posted one video by a doctor.
Sure.
Somebody with a he had a doctorate. He practiced medicine. He graduated from a legitimate school. He was a doctor of chiropractics. Mm-hmm. So virtually no training in virology. And actually, I should amend that. I think it's actually kind of dubious whether he graduated from a reputable school, because the school that he went to is a medical school that promotes the use of homeopathy, which is basically if you dilute the thing that's making you sick in enough water and ingest it, you'll develop an immunity to it, which is not how that works.
Right.
But basically, like, her flaw was her inability to suss out a reliable source versus a unreliable source.
Right.
Using things like, what are their qualifications? What is their past research experience? What are their, what sources are they citing? Going back to the pyramids thing, I was actually, no, it's not even important. I was going to say, basically what I was going to say is that I think that the reason why it's so hard for people to accept that the pyramids were built by people is that they don't understand that in the 10 million years that Homo sapiens have been a thing, those individuals of our species 10 million years ago had the same brain capacity that we have now.
Oh, for sure.
Hey everyone, Andrew here. Just wanted to make a small correction. When I said that Homo sapiens have been around for 10 million years, what I should have said was 300,000 years. I was getting that mixed up with another fact regarding when our early ancestors diverged from other great apes. I don't think it changes the point that I was trying to make, but while we're not, a news show or we're an entertainment show, we do strive to be accurate and acknowledge when we have not been. So with that, thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode. They have the same ability to reason, to extrapolate, to make inferences, to collect data, and change their behavior and build on that. The only difference between us and them is that we've had millennia to build upon the knowledge that we've accrued.
Right.
And I mean, there are like when you talk about the pyramids, you're also talking about the civilization that had trade routes as far east as India.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the use of lapis lazuli, the blue stone that you see in a lot of Egyptian artwork, that came from I believe like close to Kandahar, which is on the eastern side of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Like the border of Afghanistan and Pakistan. So they had, means to travel, navigate, transport heavy stones, long distances. They had the ability to. They invented a urine-based pregnancy test that was actually accurate.
Yes, well, relatively speaking, but yes.
Well, relatively accurate. Yeah. I mean, more accurate than you would expect.
Yeah, it's in the 70s. I just read about that recently. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, more accurate than any other thing that they were doing.
Yeah.
And they were doing some wild stuff. But if anyone's interested, basically what the test involved was peeing on grain
and seeing if it sprouted a certain amount of time. Yeah.
Yeah. But the Egyptians also invented beer. They invented beer before they invented bread, which I think is something we've talked about. So, I mean, that's a highly complex chemical reaction.
Yeah.
And you could say maybe like, yeah, they probably stumbled into some of these ideas, but they also took information and made hypotheses and used a, somewhat rudimentary version of the scientific method.
Well, we stumbled into antibiotics.
Yeah.
Penicillin was an accident.
Yeah. Wasn't he trying to... he's trying to clean like petri dishes or something, right?
He left some out that got moldy. He was like, you know what? Let's just see what happens. And then he's like, wow, this is like killing bacteria. We could harness this.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Jonas Salk. Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway.
Also, I think interesting fact about Jonas Salk. Jonas Salk was polio vaccine.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
He specifically refused to patent the polio vaccine, which makes him a hero in my book.
Alexander Fleming is...
Fleming was penicillin.
Yeah,
Jonas Salk was the polio vaccine.
Yeah,
but
he gave it away for free?
Gave it away for free because he recognized that it was, necessary for... he was just a good guy.
Yeah. But only Martin Shkreli would have done something similar.
Oh, God.
As someone who has multiple diabetic family members.
I have never seen a more punchable face.
Anyway, no, I agree. I think to mention a little bit more on what you were talking about, how like they were this complex society who found ways to move things. We look at Stonehenge, right? Which is of a similar-ish age. I mean, it's still an ancient prehistoric society. Like they didn't have writing yet. We recently were trying to figure out, and I'm recently meaning the last couple of decades. Sorry, my dog just dropped a bone. I felt it. I didn't hear it.
Yeah.
I was like, huh. Anyway, we recently were trying to be like, okay, so we know that the granite comes from Wales.
Yeah.
We know that because
we know that it's fundamentally a calendar, essentially.
We don't know that, actually.
Well, we have a pretty good case to be made for that.
That is a better way to say it. We have a good case to be made that it is at least calendar.
It was also multi-purpose.
Multi-purpose.
It was, yeah.
Anyway, what I'm saying is we know that the granite came from Wales, and so we figured, okay, so let's go to where it's from, and we know the repository it came from because we can carbon date and test the rock. It's got very specific qualities about it that allow us to identify it, and so we were like, okay, how would we have gotten this from Wales to England, where it is? And they said, well, the first thing that we would think of is a boat. Do we have, can we float it? Well, we can. Can we use primitive technology to float it?
Yeah.
And so they checked, they tried, and it sank. But when they went down to investigate where it sank, they found other stones.
Oh,
from the time period.
Okay.
So we know that they tried it.
Okay.
We don't know that they succeeded, but we know that it was attempted.
I know where you're going with this, though, and there was definitely room for Jack on that door.
Okay. Not where I was going. I was just going to say, we have... You mentioned earlier that these primitive Homo sapiens have the same brain capacity that we do. And I think that is a perfect example of it. They went through the exact same thought process in the exact same place that we did, but separated by 6,000 years, however many.
And the benefit of all of the accumulated knowledge that we have built off of to get to where we are today.
Exactly. I remember learning about that at Stonehenge and thinking, that is fascinating. How the fact that we thought the exact same thing that they did, we failed in the same way that they did. And that led to us discovering all of this information. That was insane to me.
And what no one knows is that actually how they transported that was they got like hundreds and hundreds of cats.
Yes.
And just kind of floated them along their back.
That is 100% history teacher approved.
Yeah. It's like the thing where like if you get 6 of your friends, you can like lift a car and turn it sideways in the parking space so the person can't move until the like person on either side of them is left. It's the same exact concept.
It's going to bug me if I don't correct you. No, the real way that they did it was they rolled them across logs and just moved the logs to the front every time they got to the back. That's the predominant theory.
You stuff enough cats in a tube. What's the difference between that and a log? No, but just on this, I think we're about ready to wrap up. But I do want to bring up one point that I think kind of bolsters what your and my positions on just the absurdity that aliens built the pyramids or the Nazca lines or whatever you want to attribute to that. Is the not ruins, but I don't even know what to call it. But look up Newgrange in Ireland.
Oh yeah, I know what that is.
It is a
monument.
monument. Yeah.
We actually, if I remember correct, I could be wrong, so correct me if I am here. We think that Stonehenge was once a similar structure.
I believe that is the case, but the thing that is interesting about Newgrange is that it is. Let me make sure I have my facts correct. And please, if you're listening to this and you're not familiar with Newgrange, just do a quick, Google image search so that you can kind of understand what I'm talking about. Okay, yeah. So Newgrange is a very large domed structure in Ireland. It was used as, we think, a bunch of things, a meeting place, religious ceremonies and stuff, but it is certainly an architectural feat that is actually about I think about 800 years older than the pyramids, and it is situated in a way so that on the winter solstice there's a single passageway. That passageway aligns perfectly with the sun.
And the same case is for Stonehenge, which is one of the reasons why we think that they served similar purposes, at least in the sense that they were both religious to some degree.
And I believe the pyramids of Giza, I think they align perfectly with Orion's belt, I think is the constellation.
I have heard that. I'm not positive. And I would be hesitant to say that is the case, simply because Orion's belt is more of a post-ancient Egypt. Orion's belt as a constellation comes much later.
And it's changed.
Right.
It's changed.
Right.
I mean, they still maybe had a constellation for that group of stars. It is a very distinct and easy to pick out group of stars. But I do think that the night sky that they were looking at is not the same as ours. That's why, like, a few years ago, they were going to add like a 13th zodiac, was to account for the difference in, the night sky that we're looking at 2,000 years later. Anyway, aliens are real. They aren't on Earth. I think that's kind of what we're getting at.
I always think to that Men in Black line, Elvis is not dead, he just went home.
Yeah.
Anyway, this has been Agreeable Disagreements. Do you want to do our quick little outro and I'll do our fun fact?
Yes, thank you to Halcyon Club for letting us use their song This Life is Tough But Fair from their EP Headset Emotions. If you want to check us out, we are on all of the major audio streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We also put the video recording up on YouTube. I also want to give my dad a big thanks for gifting me a brand spanking new microphone. If you've noticed that my audio quality has gotten a lot better over our last couple episodes, you have him to thank for that.
Thank you, Andrew's dad.
Yeah, thanks, Dad. Thanks, Daddy. I don't like that. Cameron, what's our fact?
Yeah, so I just want everyone to remember that Plato is not Plato's real name. In fact, Plato, the philosopher, his name could refer to one of three things. First, that he had a wide breadth of knowledge, which is the most boring of the three options. My personal favorite is the fact that he probably had a really large forehead and people were making fun of him. Or the fact that he was, because the word Plato means wide, that the dude was jacked. And this is supported by the fact that, and this is true, he was a well-accomplished professional wrestler, possibly even undefeated. And calling him wide was a nickname, kind of like calling him The Rock.
So you're saying he was thick. He's dummy thick.
I'm going to end it right there. I'm going to cut everything.
Yeah, we should cut.
I'm going to stop what I'm saying.